I agreed to an open relationship. It was my biggest mistake. My name is Ken. I'm 37 years old, and I've been married to Rose for 8 years. I always believed we had a strong marriage, stable, built on trust, the kind of partnership where you could close your eyes and feel secure knowing the other person had your back. But that illusion shattered over a single dinner conversation. We were sitting at our usual spot, a small Italian place down the street. Rose had been distant lately, but I assumed it was just the stress from work. The way she twirled her fork in her pasta, barely eating, should have been a red flag. Then she said it. Ken, I want to talk about an open relationship. I froze, my fork hovering midair. My mind raced through 100 different responses, but all I managed was a confused, "What?" Rose reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her grip was warm but felt unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else. "I love you," she said. "I really do. But I feel like something is missing. I just want to explore, experience new things. It's just an experiment. We'll be honest with each other." I should have said no. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Rose had always been persuasive. It was one of the things I loved about her, the way she could convince anyone of anything. And deep down, I feared that saying no would make me seem insecure, unloving. So I agreed. That was my biggest mistake. At first, it was awkward. We set ground rules. No emotional attachments. Always use protection. Full honesty. Rose was excited, like she had been given a new lease on life. The very next weekend, she had her first date. She got ready with a level of enthusiasm I hadn't seen in years. She spent hours picking out an outfit, doing her makeup, and straightening her hair, things she never did when we went out together anymore. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the clock. It was past midnight when she got home. She slipped into bed beside me, smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. "How was it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned on her side, away from me. "It was fun," she said. "Let's talk tomorrow. I'm exhausted." That became the pattern. Rose was out late most nights, meeting new people, coming home with a satisfied glow on her face. I told myself I could do this too. But reality was different. Dating as a married man wasn't easy. I downloaded the apps, sent out messages, tried to connect with someone. The responses were always the same. "You seem nice, but I don't date married men. I'm looking for something serious. Your wife is okay with this?" "Yeah, I don't believe that." While Rose was out meeting new partners every week, I was stuck swiping through rejection after rejection. She had options. I had none. It wasn't an open relationship. It was her relationship. Our home, once filled with laughter, had become a place of silence. Conversations turned into polite exchanges. "Did you pay the electricity bill? What do you want for dinner?" I would reach out to hold her hand, and she would pull away, saying, "Not now, Ken." At first, I convinced myself it was just temporary, that things would balance out. But then, little things started to change. Rose stopped texting me during the day. "No more thinking about you" messages or funny memes. When I texted her, she often left me on read. She started dressing differently. I'd always loved her in casual sweaters and jeans, but now she was wearing tight dresses, high heels, and perfume even when she was just grabbing coffee with a friend. And the worst part, she stopped looking at me the way she used to. There was a time when I could make her laugh with just a look. Now, when she looked at me, it was as if I was furniture in the room, just something that existed in the background. I tried to talk to her about it. One night, as she was getting ready to go out, I asked, "Do you even enjoy spending time with me anymore?" She paused, mascara wand in hand. "Ken, don't do this. We agreed to this." "Yeah, but I didn't agree to be left behind." She sighed. "I don't know what you want me to say. This is exciting for me. I feel alive." "And what about me?" She didn't answer. One night, she went out again. I didn't ask where. I had stopped asking. I sat in the kitchen, staring at my phone, debating whether to call one of the guys from work to hang out, just anything to avoid being alone. But I knew no one would understand. I opened up one of the dating apps. No new matches. No new messages. I glanced at the clock. It was 2:14 a.m. She still wasn't home. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with questions I didn't want to ask. Then, At 3:30 a.m., I heard the door open. I closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. I heard her heels clicking against the floor, then the soft rustle of her dress as she undressed. Then, I felt the bed shift as she slid in beside me. And then, the thing that finally broke me, she sighed. A long, deep, content sigh. She never sighed like that with me anymore. I didn't agree to be a ghost in my own home. I didn't agree to be the man she barely noticed while she lived a second life with someone else. And I definitely didn't agree to become financially responsible for a wife who was emotionally, physically, and mentally checked out of our marriage. Then, one evening, she finally said it. We were in the kitchen. I was cleaning up after dinner while she scrolled through her phone, smiling at something, someone. The warmth I used to feel when I saw her happy was gone. Now, it was just a reminder that I had been replaced. I heard her take a deep breath, like she was preparing herself for something. I met someone special, she said, setting her phone down. His name is Zach. I stopped wiping the counter. My fingers tightened around the dish towel. I should have seen this coming, but somehow, hearing her say it out loud made my stomach drop. She wasn't talking about some random guy she was seeing for fun. This was different. Special? I repeated, forcing my voice to stay steady. She nodded, her eyes lighting up in a way they hadn't for me in a long time. Yeah, he's amazing, Ken. We just click. He understands me in a way I didn't even know I needed. I swallowed hard. And what about me? She tilted her head like I had asked a stupid question. You realize that we're still together, right? Still together. As if what we had wasn't already broken beyond repair. But in her mind, I was still there. Her husband, her safety net, her best friend. I watched as Rose spent more and more time with Zach. At first, she at least tried to be discreet about it. Then, she stopped caring altogether. She would go out in the evening, come back late, and tell me, "Oh, Zach and I grabbed dinner after work." She stopped wearing her wedding ring. "It just doesn't go with my outfits," she said when I asked about it. She started talking about him in casual conversations. "Zach showed me this new sushi place today. We should go sometime. Zach thinks I should get into yoga. Isn't that funny?" At first, I was in denial. I told myself this was just another phase, that eventually, she would realize what she was doing and come back to me. Then one night, she came home late, later than usual. I was in bed, pretending to be asleep. She slipped under the covers, sighed deeply, and whispered, "Good night, Ken. Love you." But the words were empty. A habit, nothing more. That was the moment I realized I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just the guy paying for the house. Enough was enough. I spent weeks in silence, pretending I was okay with it. Pretending I didn't see the way she texted Zach when she thought I wasn't looking. Pretending I didn't hear her phone buzz at night, knowing exactly who it was. But inside, something shifted. I wasn't going to be the fool who sat back while his wife built a new life with another man. I decided to prepare. Not to leave quietly, but to make sure Rose wouldn't get a single thing from me when this was all over. Building my case. The first thing I did was hire a lawyer. I met with him in a small office downtown, my palms sweating as I explained my situation. He listened, nodding occasionally, before finally saying, "Ken, you need to start gathering evidence. If you want to ensure she doesn't take anything in the divorce, you'll need proof of her infidelity." I had suspected that already, but hearing it confirmed made it real. So I got to work. I started small. I placed a voice recorder in our bedroom, just in case she ever invited Zach over. I didn't think she would, but at this point, nothing surprised me. Then, I installed small hidden cameras in the living room and kitchen. I told myself it was just to monitor things while I was out, but deep down, I knew what I was looking for. And I found it. The first time I reviewed the footage, my hands were shaking. I watched as Rose lounged on the couch, giggling on the phone. "I miss you too," she said, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. Then, later that week, I caught them in the house together. Not in our bedroom. She wasn't stupid, but in the living room, curled up on the couch, watching a movie like they were a couple. I felt sick. Finding someone who actually cared. I wasn't going to just sit in misery while Rose enjoyed her new life. I started going out more, reconnecting with old friends. That's when I met Emily. She was different from Rose in every way. Where Rose had grown distant and cold, Emily was warm and kind. She didn't judge me when I told her about my marriage. She listened, really listened, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone actually cared. She knew I wasn't emotionally available yet, and she didn't push for anything serious. But she was there for me, supporting me, making me feel like I wasn't completely alone. And that mattered more than I could explain. I had a plan now. I was going to ruin Rose's new life before she even had a chance to enjoy it. The evidence I gathered would ensure she got nothing in the divorce. The cameras continued to capture every moment she spent with Zach in our house. I wasn't the weak, desperate husband she thought I was. I was done being her safety net. And soon, she was going to find out exactly what that meant. The X moment has arrived. I told Rose I had a business trip that weekend. It wasn't a complete lie. I did have work obligations, but I scheduled my trip specifically to see what would happen when I was gone. When I kissed her goodbye at the door, she smiled at me like nothing had changed, like we were still the same couple we used to be. It almost made me laugh. But I knew what was coming next. I had seen it happen before on my security cameras, and today, I was going to watch it unfold in real time. I parked my car a few blocks away and pulled up the live feed on my phone. Right on schedule, Zach arrived. He didn't even wait 5 minutes. The moment my car was out of sight, he pulled into the driveway and walked through the front door like he owned the place. I felt my fingers tighten around my phone. Inside, they were on the couch, our couch. She kissed him, laughing as she ran her fingers through his hair. They looked comfortable, completely at ease, as if they had done this 100 times before. And then, I heard her say it. "I'm going to file for divorce soon," Rose told him, resting her head on his shoulder. "It's time for me to start a new life." Zach grinned. "You sure he won't try to fight you on it?" "No way." She waved her hand dismissively. "Ken's predictable. He'll be sad, but he'll sign the papers. He always does what I want." I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. Zach stretched his arms behind his head. "And what about the house? The money? What about them?" she said, smirking. "I'm taking it all." She laughed, as if the idea of me keeping what was mine was ridiculous. "Ken's been paying for everything," she continued. "He owes me. I'll say I need spousal support, get the house in the settlement. By the time I'm done, he won't have much left." Zach chuckled, shaking his head. "That's cold." "Oh, come on." She nudged him playfully. "Don't act like you care. Once the divorce is done, we'll have everything we need." He didn't argue. Instead, he pulled her closer, pressing another kiss to her lips. That was enough for me. I slid my phone into my pocket, walked up to my front door, and turned the handle. The lock clicked open, and I stepped inside. The moment I walked in, time seemed to freeze. Rose's back was to me, but Zach's eyes widened in panic the second he saw me standing there. He nudged her, but she was too busy scrolling on her phone to notice. "What?" she mumbled before looking up. And then, she saw me. Her whole body tensed. She pulled away from Zach so fast it was almost comical. "Ken?" she stammered. "I thought you were." I didn't let her finish. I walked over to the TV, grabbed the remote, and pressed play. The footage from the security cameras filled the screen. There she was, laughing with Zach, talking about how she was using me. Every single word was there. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruel joke at my expense. Zach sat frozen, his face pale. Rose's mouth opened and closed like she wanted to explain, but what could she possibly say? I let the footage play for another minute, just long enough to make sure they absorbed it. Then, I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick stack of papers. The divorce papers. I held them up, my voice calm and steady. "You deserve each other," I said. "Just without my house and my money." Rose shot up from the couch. "Ken, wait." I turned to her, arching an eyebrow. "Wait for what? For you to lie to my face again?" Her hands shook. I wasn't going to actually take everything. I was just talking. "You have to understand." I let out a short laugh. "Understand? You sat there and planned out how to leave me with nothing. And now you're upset that I figured it out first?" Her face crumbled. Zach, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat and stood up. "I should probably—" "Yeah." I cut him off, stepping aside. "You should." He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his jacket and moved toward the door, but Rose's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Zach, don't go." He glanced at her, then at the divorce papers in my hand. And then he yanked his arm away. "Sorry, Rose," he muttered. "I'm not really into all this drama." And just like that, he was gone. I watched as Rose's last lifeline walked out the door without a second glance. She turned back to me, tears pooling in her eyes. "Ken, I held up a hand. "Don't. Just don't." She swallowed hard, wiping at her face. "Where am I supposed to go?" I shrugged. "Not my problem." Her breath hitched, and for a second, I almost felt bad. But then I remembered all the times I sat at home alone, waiting for her to come back from her dates. All the nights I stayed awake, wondering if my wife even loved me anymore. And suddenly, I felt nothing at all. The footage had already been sent to her family. Her parents, her siblings, they all knew exactly who she was now. I saw the realization dawn in her eyes. She had nothing. No husband, no lover, no home. And I was finally free. I don't know what happened to Rose after that. People say that karma always comes around in the end. I just made sure Rose got hers sooner rather than later. In the weeks that followed my confrontation with Rose, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. No more waiting up at night, wondering where she was. No more pretending not to notice when she pulled away from me. No more humiliation. The divorce was finalized quickly, thanks to my lawyer. Rose tried to fight it at first, sending long messages about how I was overreacting and that we could talk things through. But the evidence I had gathered was overwhelming. In the end, she lost everything. Her family saw the footage and turned their backs on her. Zach disappeared the moment he realized there was no money to take from me. And as far as I knew, she had nowhere to go. I should have felt victorious. But instead, all I felt was relief. I was finally free. Emily, the woman who helped me heal. Through all of this, Emily had been there. She wasn't just some rebound or distraction. She was the only person who truly saw me when I felt invisible. I still remember the first time I told her everything. We were sitting in a small coffee shop, the warmth of the mug in my hands grounding me as I spoke. I told her about Rose, about how our open relationship had been a lie, how I had become nothing more than a background character in my own marriage. Emily listened, really listened. She didn't try to tell me it would all be okay, or that I needed to move on. She just let me talk, let me pour out the frustration and sadness I had been holding on to for months. "You didn't deserve that," she said when I finished. "No one deserves to be treated like they're replaceable." I looked at her then, really looked at her. She was different from Rose in every way. Where Rose had been distant, Emily was present. Where Rose had made me feel like an option, Emily made me feel like a priority. She appreciated me, and that was something I hadn't felt in years. When the divorce was finalized, I knew I couldn't stay in that house. Every corner held memories of a life that no longer existed. The couch where Rose and I used to watch movies. The kitchen where we had once cooked together. The bedroom where, for months, I had slept alone, knowing she was out with someone else. I needed a real fresh start, so I sold the house. I packed up my life, and Emily and I moved to Los Angeles. It was a city full of new possibilities, of endless sun and ocean air. For the first time in years, I wasn't living in the shadow of my past. I was finally living for myself. Emily and I spent our mornings walking along the beach, the waves crashing against the shore as the salty breeze wrapped around us. We tried new restaurants, explored the city, and laughed, really laughed. At night, we sat on our small balcony, watching the city lights flicker like stars below us. I had never felt so at peace. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. One afternoon, I was sitting on the balcony with a cup of coffee, scrolling through my phone, when I saw it. A message from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was spam, but then I opened it. I made a mistake. Give me a chance to explain everything. I stared at the screen, my heartbeat steady, my fingers hovering over the delete button. So I did the only thing that made sense. I deleted the message. And just like that, I moved on. Because some people don't deserve a second chance. And I had already wasted enough time on someone who never really loved me.